Okay, today I am going to take these towels that I wove on an Ashford 32-inch 8-shaft table loom. This is a really common pattern that you find, a draft that you find on just a Google search or Pinterest. It's a snowflake design. And part of it is that I reinvented this to shades of blue. And I used Knit Picks Cotlin Reflections in Polar Bear. This medium blue is Hydrangea. The dark blue is Eclipse. It's a DK weight, and this is what I had on hand. But the original pattern, I believe, is usually done in an 8-2 cotton or something like that. And it's done in Christmas colors. When you search the pattern, search it for like Christmas 8-shaft draft. And you'll get this checkerboard appearance, except it'll have like red, white, green, white, red, white, all the way across. And then down the side it'll have like white or red, white, green, red, white, green. And it mixes up what more look like poinsettias on the red, green, and white. And then these medium blues that run here are actually done in black on that draft. So that's how you find this draft. I just reinvented it in blues, and I really like it. But I have to hand sew the, finish up these hems. What I did is I did a 9-yard warp. It's kind of what I tend to do. I like to do 9 yards because a lot of time is consumed in the setup. And when you do a 9-yard warp, if you can, you actually can get a lot of project, a lot of, like in this case, towels, out of one warp and not have to go through that setup over and over and over again, if you have enough yarn to do it. And I had an abundance of these yarns. I got them in the 2021 big sale for Knit Picks, which actually, incidentally, the big sale for 2022 is going on right now. These colors are no longer available. They were clearing out the Cotlin Reflections, but they do have some pretty decent sales. Probably will come up with some dollar sales this week or in the next coming weeks. I know the sale runs from November 9th to like the 21st or something. Go to knitpicks.com. You'll see it on there. It's front page. Anyway, so I get long warps going, and between them, I just put I put 1 or maybe 2 separating threads. And I use something thick, like this is DK weight, so I'd use like a worsted or something like that. And then I take it to the sewing machine, and I just run any kind of a stitch across here. I did it twice this time. I just want to make sure that these ends didn't pull out, because if you don't lock down the threads somehow, the warp threads, or both of them, the weft and the weft will just migrate out right the top, and we really don't want that. And it doesn't matter because it's pretty rough. That edge is pretty rough, but it doesn't matter because you're actually going to hide it inside the seam. And you can do this a couple of different ways. I would really love to do the way that that I've seen a lot of people do, where you actually iron it, and once it's ironed, you fold it over and you iron it, and then you tuck this down to that line, and then you go ahead and you can whip stitch it. Maybe you run it on the sewing machine, and however you work it, that's how you work it, and it's all good. Or like I left myself pretty good hem. You can fold it down like this and iron it. And why would you iron it? Because it locks it down. It gives you a nice clean seam. And then you tuck it up under here. And then you stitch it down definitively, however it is that you're going to do that. And especially when you're working with something with that clear line, you can get a really nice looking towel out of it. And the reason for not taking this to pattern all the way to the end is it does give me this line of demarcation. And it does make it easier to finish. Though I would like to do that, I'm not going to. And the reason I'm not going to is because irons have, oh gosh, they have kind of a chemically smell when they're new. And I react to chemicals. Definitely react to fragrances horrifically badly. And chemicals, it's not great for me. It's that outgassing smell that I'm sure several of you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So I modify things and I make it work for me the way I can operate. And I don't worry too much about proper way to do things, because proper is however you get it done. And the beauty is there's so many different ways that there is no wrong way, because if it accomplishes the goal, everything is the right way. So for me, I am going to do the fold over to the line, tuck this underneath, and then I'll whip stitch across. And I've got these, I believe these are from quilting, the quilting world. I like to borrow, pilfer, borrow, there's another word for it, liberate. I like to liberate techniques from other arts to use in mine, because I think if it works in one place, it's likely to work in another. So I'm going to use these to hold them down. Just keep the place. This pattern is a really good one to show because you have very distinct lines, and you just want to make sure to line those up. You don't want to get to the end of the hem and have the whole thing migrating this way, because it would be very annoying, I'm sure. This particular dishcloth is actually going to my neighbor tomorrow morning, because we are getting our first snow tomorrow morning, or at the time of taping tomorrow morning. And I have a twisted sense of humor, so I will give her Snowflake dish towel on the first snowflake of the year. And that makes sense in my head, so I'm going to roll with it. Now, one of the things I was doing with this when I was setting up this warp is I actually wanted it to be 32-inch wide bath towels. And I'm not a great one for planning. I think sometimes I absolutely want to plan everything out, but because I have to plan things so excessively in my daily life, because the fragrance reactions, I like to let things happen naturally when I can. I don't like to have to over control things with regard to fragrances. It causes me significant neurologic harm, and can take quite a bit of time to recover from. And recovery, just honestly, it kind of looks like a prolonged flu or something like that. I won't even go into it. It's kind of not relevant just yet, but we'll get there, I'm sure, sooner or later. So when I can, I like to kind of just let it be, let it evolve as it's going to, instead of having to worry about whether or not something is going perfectly, because I don't really care about perfectly. So when I was putting this warp, I was using the 9-yard Becca warping board, and I quickly realized exactly how fast I was going to run out of my warp. And I wasn't quite sure how much weft I was going to need because I was playing with different patterns. So when you're weaving, for those of you who are new to weaving, you have these long threads that are going away from you as you're sitting at the loom. They're kind of like the lines of longitude on a map. They're the long ones, and those are static. They're not going anywhere. You can, when you put them through the heddles, which are the tie-ups essentially that, tie-up isn't quite the right word. They go through holes on these strings, and then it's kind of like Puppet Master, right? It's kind of like marionette. And so you have, I think this was done on a 10 set. And so if I want 20 inches on the loom, then at a 10 set, what is that? 200 ends. And then each of those ends, quote unquote, each one of those threads is 9 yards long. So you actually can calculate how much of these warp threads you need. But I don't do that because I'm me. So as I was getting to the end of the first half of my warp, at about the 16-inch mark, I figured out pretty quickly that I was going to be running low on yarn because I didn't know how much yarn of each color I was going to use in the weft, which goes left and right. Okay, I didn't know how much I was going to use up, so I changed plans, and instead of doing full-size 32-inch bath towels or 32-inch on the loom bath towels, I changed plans and I shortened it so that I would use. Now I have to think. I'll put the notes. I'll put it in the notes of the video. I shortened the entire thing to 22 inches or something like that, and by not going that extra 10 inches, I was saving, I'm a rough number, 900 yards or something of the warp yarn to use as weft. And you can do that. You can change your plans, anything you want to do. It's your stuff. It's your projects. So some of these towels I have where I changed from the polar bear to the eclipse. Some of them I did put a hydrangea, a medium blue in between. Some I did all dark blue, all eclipse, and they're gorgeous. So they'll show up in another video, but you'll see them. They will look like this with just linear columns this way of snowflakes. It's just gorgeous. So that's kind of where we were at on this. I like the adventure, and I know that can really mess with some people's brains, but I like the adventure. I like not knowing what the next weft is going to look like. The towels are all similar but different because you do have this, these warps are static, but how you lift, it's called the lift pattern. The levers, there's 8 levers. You can change them and you can lift them and lower them in different combinations. And I chose for this weft to do all snowflakes. I got the variation from the colors that I ran left and right. And I'll see if I can get a picture of them all together and show all the different ones, because one of the beauties of weaving is that even when there's something set like your warp pattern, you can do a large variety, and they look similar but different. It's kind of like your children, you know. Even your twins are going to be a little bit different. They're going to be unique in their own way, and that's really nice. So I have to hand stitch this down. What I'm going to do over here on the side, this is the end of my desk right here, and I don't want the fabric to keep pulling off of the desk, because that's just going to annoy me. So I use these clips a lot. You'll keep seeing them in my videos. They are 2.4-inch binder clips. Nothing fancy, office supply store. But they're nice and smooth on the inside here, and they won't rip up your fabric. So I'm just going to take it and clip right to the side. I'm just going to turn this just a little bit so you can see, right to the side, right there, so that my weaving doesn't fall off the desk or my woven fabric doesn't fall off the desk as I'm sewing this down. And you will quickly learn I am not a sewist. I know nothing. I do what works, and I rock it. I don't do quilting, I don't do sewing, and that's okay. I just haven't had the time to learn it. I don't know that I ever will have the time to learn it. That's a whole other conversation. This is the yarn I use for it. It's Curio. Again, it's a knit picks, and I think it's a number 10, the thinner of them. I think it's number 10. So I just get however much. I don't even know how much I'm supposed to use. 2-3 times the length of the width of the fabric. I don't know. I'll just do what I want. And partly why I am doing this is beyond the fact that I'm going to be giving this to my neighbor tomorrow as a happy first day of snow gift. I also sat by the phone all day today waiting on a phone call that never came, and that annoys me. And part of the reason why it annoys me so badly is that there's a thing that happens. I have a disability, and y'all will quickly figure that out because I'm not shy about it. But I am trying to get health care. And one of the classic techniques of denying people with disabilities health care is actually to just not respond to them. Pardon me while I get my magnifying glass. Yeah, they just don't respond to you as if it's acceptable. So I have an immediate need for dental care. I have had an immediate need for dental care for a while, and I have been trying everything that I can to get dental care. And this particular office has been they've been ignoring my requests. And when I ask for accommodation, I kind of messed this up, I'm going to go backwards. When I ask for accommodation, I am clear about what I need. I accommodate myself to the best of my abilities. Self-accommodation is one of these things that everybody thinks that you can do, but not in an environment where you don't control what's going on. So, can a person with a disability self-accommodate? Yes and no. They can accommodate themselves up to a point, but then at that point they're really enabling, if they go beyond it, they're enabling bad behavior. And what do I mean by that? So let's say we have a patient who is deaf, and they need to go to the doctor. If they go to a family practice doctor and they have an ear infection, can the family member, can they interpret for that patient? Yes and no. There's a lot of yes and no to this. In a pinch, yes, to the extent of, the family member saying, okay, we need an ASL interpreter. That would be fine, right? The problem is the patient needs to be able to properly communicate with the staff without having their medical information filtered through a third party that is not trained to translate medical, and that perhaps this patient doesn't want this person to have that information. So it is appropriate for a third party to be that interpreter. Because let's say it's not a family practice and the patient doesn't have an ear infection. Let's say it's a gynecologist. And the 12-year-old daughter of this person who was deaf is being expected to ASL translate the mother's gynecologic history or miscarriages or menstrual cycles or how many times they have sex with their partner. Guessing that an 11, 12-year-old child doesn't want to have to do that. And that's why, part of why it is not appropriate to expect the patient with the disability to self-accommodate, besides the fact that this child is likely not going to be able to properly communicate things like acute blood loss anemia or pyelonephritis or whatever, because they're not trained. And it puts a burden on the person with the disability. So do people with disabilities never self-accommodate? No, they do. Because a lot of times it's easier just to accommodate themselves than it is to actually request the accommodations that by law they have a right to. And that's unfortunate. And I've actually done that myself too, because at no point do we want to have to be seen as special or seen as somebody who asks too much. Oh, we just ask too much. Can't we just do it ourselves? If we just did it ourselves, we would be less of a burden on society. Why are we being lazy is usually how it comes out. And none of it's true. None of it is true. But that's what we have to deal with constantly. And it gets worse depending on the kind of disability that you have. And it's a slippery slope. It's a massive slippery slope. So having said that, a lot of times the accommodations that we make for ourselves, we do for ourselves, because asking for an accommodation should not be, but is often traumatic. We are forced to beg for our existence. We are forced to splay open our lives in ways that never should happen. We're scrutinized. And a lot of times what you are asking for is extremely easy and it's quick, and human to human, there should be no problem making it happen. But it always seems to be a much bigger goat rope than it should be. So to that end, I have been searching for a dental office that is accessible to my particular kind of disability. I have been searching for 5.5 years now, which means, you guessed it, I have not had dental care in 5.5 years. That's a problem. That is a massive problem. I've been searching for a very long time. I have accommodated myself in every way that I can, and yet I sit here with no care. And I do mean here, right now, exactly now, with no care. So I found a new office, and they are very Christian. And I want to say that they do like mission trips, I want to say. And I'm just going to pop them up right here because now I'm just curious. Hold on. I know that they did a day when they, let's see, when they were doing a Veterans Day, where they were giving some free services to veterans, and gotta love that. I think we should be taking care of each other. That's wonderful. But it was a couple months ago, somewhere around October, I had attempted to go to their office, and it was inaccessible. So I did my due diligence, and I reported back that it was inaccessible, and I explained why it was inaccessible. And the office, I don't call her an office manager, I think she was just one of the staff, said that she was going to give it to the office managers, and that I would be hearing back from them. And a month went by, and you guessed it, no communication. This is a very typical ploy. And so I called again and said, hey, I'm still waiting. And I was supposed to hear back from the office manager, but the office manager didn't call me. One of the front desk people did. A very common technique in high control situations, which you'll figure out pretty quickly that healthcare is a high control situation, is when they want to limit their exposure, they will always have the lowest level person making the contact, because if you know what questions to ask and you're trying to advocate for yourself and you're trying to exercise your legal rights to get the care that you need, quite frequently that becomes, I hate to say it, it becomes very threatening to doctors' offices, to their staff, and not because you've done anything. You can be the sweetest person, you can be business polite the entire time, but the mere mention of the ADA and federal law will kick up their defenses because they think that you're threatening them. And you're not. You're just saying, there exists this law, and under that law, I just want to let you know that, I do need these services, and I need this accommodation from you, and so we need to work together to make that happen, because, I want to work with you. We have good conversations and whatever. Even saying things in that manner is enough to kick up their defenses and for them to feel like threatened. And the problem is, you're not threatening them. They're taking the awareness of their obligations under the law as a threat, and they're conflating those two terms. So it's not a threat of violence. It's a threat of it's not even a threat. It's just you saying, I want to have good conversations so that I can get the care that I need. And you can tell pretty quickly if an office has any clue what the ADA is or any clue of their obligations under federal law, and most don't. So how do you exercise your rights as a person with a disability who needs this care when you can't even reference the laws and that are protecting you? And you never lead with that, of course. You do everything else first, and if the conversations aren't going anywhere, then yeah, sometimes you do have to say, I just want to make sure that I'm communicating this well, in regard to the ADA. So you're kind of buggered no matter what you do, but you still try because you still need the care and you're still not getting it. So that was back in October, and finally, like I said, one of the front desk people called and said, we have this other location. It's pretty new, and I'm going to have you try that location. Maybe it'll be more accessible to you. And it was more accessible. It wasn't fully accessible, but I'm desperate because I really need dental care. And so I accommodated myself as much as humanly possible to the point where the care that I was given was dicey because I had to over-rely on my accommodative device. So I had explained that I needed to be in the office for as short of a period of time as possible because of this accommodative device that it can get overwhelmed pretty quickly. And when it gets overwhelmed, then I am left completely unprotected, and we can't have that happening with my disability. So unfortunately, they did well on certain things. I'm going to call her the dental assistant, asked, she doesn't know anything about my disability, and she was asking good questions. And I was thinking, yes, finally I'm going to get the care that I desperately need. I mean, this is getting ridiculous at this point. And all we got accomplished in an hour and a half was a set of x-rays and the oral cancer check. That's it. But I got x-rays. Yay. It only took 5.5 years of fighting. I finally got x-rays. And then the dentist came in and told me the treatment plan. And because it's been 5.5 years since I have been in a dental office, because of this barrier, and I have been trying. Do not think I have not been trying. It's all I do is try to break down this barrier. Because of the extreme delay in dental care, I have a crown that had fallen off because of decay underneath it, and that happened several months ago, but no care. So I've known that crown has been loose for about 2 or 3 years, and I couldn't do anything about it because I couldn't get dental care. So there you go. So it had fallen off, and the tooth underneath it is not able to be saved. So I have to have an oral surgeon pull that one. And I have had a dental infection for 7 months now. And I have been draining it myself, because if I don't drain it, it will spontaneously drain. And if you just went, ew, you would be correct. It's disgusting. So I have been limping that along as best as I can. And if you're wondering, how does she drain a dental infection? She's not a dentist. Exactly. So how I do it, and I am not suggesting that you do this at home, I am not proposing that this is a great idea. I'm just telling you that this is what refusal to treat me has left me doing, because I do not want to do this, but dentists are refusing to treat me because of my disability, and my disability does not have anything to do with my teeth. And they are in violation of federal law by not treating me. So it has cost me the one tooth with the failed crown. I'm going to have that pulled by an oral surgeon. The tooth with the infection that I've been draining since, for 7 months, it also is going to have to be pulled. And so that has to go to the oral surgeon, apparently. And I don't honestly know why. They said because of it's too complex or something, but they didn't really elaborate on it, so I don't have more information. And then I have another tooth that I did not know that has an infection in it, and that needs endodontic treatment. So what that means is it already has a crown on it, and the endodontist has to go through the crown to do therapy on the root canal, which means to clean it out and pretty it all up, get it all back to neutral. I'm sure they're going to do a root canal, so they'll take out the infected pulp, and they'll, do their magic, whatever it is that they do. And then I have to go apparently back to the dentist to have the crown finished off or something like that, like resealed or whatever. And that is not including visible cavities and the fact that I haven't had a cleaning in 5 years, and rather unfortunate that I've never had great teeth, but I was trying to keep them as up as I could until I was being denied dental care. So I have all of this work that needs to be done. This dentist is now acutely aware, as am I, of exactly how bad it is. And for the people who are kind of going, okay, that's bad, but why is this, how big of a problem is this really? Well, it's a big problem. Dental infections that are untreated can go into bacterial endocarditis, and you can get vegetations on your valves, and those vegetations can break off, and they can cause deep venous thrombosis, DVT, if you haven't heard that, and they can actually cause stroke, because once you get a thrombosis, just kind of, or an embolus at that point, just kind of floating freely around, it can lodge anywhere. And you really don't play around with dental infections as a general rule. And so there's that. There's also the fact that any bacterial infection like that, especially dental infections, can just be rat bastards. They're just they can be horrible. They can cause localized infection, and you can literally get abscesses so bad that it requires surgery to flay open the patient's neck and dig around to clean out all of the pockets of abscess. And in the midst of all of that, it can also go to bacteremia, which is a blood infection, which can go to sepsis, which is the continuation of that process. And sepsis can go to severe sepsis and septic shock, which is a collapse of your vascular system, essentially. And you can get multi-organ failure from the sepsis, and you can die. So maybe, just a thought, we don't fuck around with dental infections. We take them seriously, which I'm pretty sure there's at least a couple people listening to this who are going, wait a minute, I've had a dental infection before, and, I was told that I have to, get this treated like within the week. They put me on antibiotics, and they, got me in for whatever it was going to be, if it was going to be a pulled tooth or a root canal or whatever, like they wanted me in there within the week or something. They weren't going to let me not do this. Yes, that is very standard from everything I can tell and everything that, I've experienced in the past before I had this disability. But when you have a disability, the standard of care that is offered to a person without a disability is very different than the standard of care that is offered to a person with a disability. Because, I would say I know, but I actually don't know. There's a weird assumption that when you have a disability, somehow that has rendered you bulletproof. Like infections no longer impact you, or cancer no longer can, you don't need a prostate exam. Why not do it? If you have a prostate, you need a prostate exam at some point. You need those screenings. If you have a colon, you need colonoscopies at some point. If you have a uterus and it still has a cervix attached, you need a pap smear. We're not bulletproof because we have a disability, and it's very strange to watch how quickly the standards of care just melt away because you have a disability. So I left that appointment. I actually had to leave that appointment a little bit early because my assist device that I was overly relying on was failing, which it does. It just does. And I could no longer stay in the building, this building that was not accessible to me. It was accessible enough that I could overcompensate, self-accommodate, but those self-accommodations are dicey. And my self-accommodation finally failed, and I had to leave. And before that had happened, I talked to the dentist, and I had asked, can I, if I keep working with your staff on these, simple changes that would make your office more accessible to me, I asked a favor. I have to ask favors. And sometimes it's an accommodation, and sometimes I'm literally asking somebody to go above and beyond for me. And I don't like that, but I have to ask because I can't overcompensate for everything. And it's very humbling, humiliating. It's humiliating to have to ask. But I do because I really, really, really need to have my teeth fixed, especially in light of 2 infections. So that was at the beginning of October. And the communication with the office got sporadic in the month of October because I was trying to work with them in light of getting the accommodations made so that I would be safe to get care for my teeth. And we started getting a lot of wishy-washy from the office. So, if they said, oh, well, we'll call you tomorrow, they didn't call at all. And the next week I'd have to call and say, hey, yeah, I was waiting on this call from so-and-so on, whatever. And the latest round of that was Thursday of last week. I was told that the office manager was going to have a phone call, or have a meeting with the doctor, with the dentist, and that she would call. That was going to be early morning on Friday, and she was going to call me early morning Friday after the meeting. And surprise, surprise, I never got that phone call. Now, one of the tricks of these high control situations is that when these office managers say, don't want to talk to me because I know my rights, I know that I have rights, I know that what I'm asking them to do is actually not a problem, should not be a problem. It will save them money. I'm only asking for the things that I absolutely need. Anything that I can self-accommodate on, I do. And there's a great unwillingness to actually make these accommodations. And it usually shows up in multiple ways, but one of the ways that it shows up in is the people in the positions of authority to make those accommodations, to make those changes, they stop communicating. They have the staff call instead. So you'll get the dental assistants or the front office, the front desk people or something like that, when really, when you're talking about ADA and you're talking about accommodations, you should be talking to the owner or the office manager, somebody who has authority. So anytime they push the communication down to lower levels, that is a huge sign that they are not going to accommodate your disability. And that's years of practice. So I'm just saying it's what happens. So anyway, that was Friday of last week. And so I called again this week, Tuesday, Thursday, something like that. And again, business casual, I'm being nice about it, just kind of assuming, oh, I'm sure she just didn't have a chance to call me. I actually know why she didn't call me, but I still have to pretend that I am not in the know, even though the writing's on the wall. So mysteriously too, this office manager is now always with a patient when I call. Always. No, she's not. But that's one of the ways that they control the narrative. But let's pretend that I don't know things, and let's pretend that she is actually in with another patient. It's fine. Have her give me a call back. And she actually did. I'll give her credit this time. She called back the next day. But they still didn't have any information. And I'm thinking at this point, it's been a month. It's been a month since I got those x-rays and the treatment plan, and I'm still sitting here with infections in my face. Maybe we should move faster than a month, but I can't say any of that because I have to be the perpetual ray of sunshine and hope, because when you have a disability, you're really not allowed to have real feelings. You can only have the feelings that you're told societally that you're allowed to have. So I would say that the office manager called me back. She actually never did. The dental assistant is the one who called me back. And they decided, without talking to me, without notifying me, that they are not going to treat me because something, and I'm not quite sure where they got it, but because I had because my assist device was overcome, it failed during the early October appointment. At that point, they decided that I had to have medical clearance for dental care. Keeping in mind that if the office was actually accessible for my disability, I wouldn't even have to disclose that I have a disability. But because my assist device was overwhelmed by a barrier that they had in their office, they were the cause of it. Now I have to have medical clearance. And I did get medical clearance, and they are saying that it's insufficient. The medical clearance answered every question that was on the form. Yet, now they're saying that it is insufficient. And I, again, have no care. I have no dental care. And so I said to this dental assistant, I think it's time that you let me talk to the dentist directly. Because without dental care, the treatment plan that I was given before was under the assumption that I would be able to get care. Now that I do not have access to dental care, they are denying me access to dental care, and I made very few requests for accommodation, and in 5 weeks' time, nothing has been done on that very, very, very short list. And even worse than that, there's a couple of things that I had asked, kind of, without going too far into it, I would say special equipment, but that's not quite accurate. But knowing that it would be easiest to accommodate me with a little bit of what I will call new equipment, and I didn't want that to stop my getting dental care, so I offered to purchase that for them, so that I would have broken down every barrier to me accessing care that I possibly could. And it's been 5 weeks, and those very, very, very few requests, nothing has been done to move those forward. When you have somebody who in 5 weeks has not done the most basic elementary things to be accessible, they were really never planning on it in the first place. And it's kind of like if you walk into a dentist, a doctor's office, whatever, and they have a bowl of peanuts sitting in the waiting room, and you're allergic to peanuts, and you say, hey, that's really dangerous for me. Your building's inaccessible, but it's a simple fix. Just don't have peanuts in the waiting room. It is logical to go for them to say, hey, you're right. I didn't even think about people being anaphylactic or whatever. Gone. You walk over there, you get rid of the peanuts, you tell everybody no more peanuts, and you're done. It does not need to be this long, drawn-out process. Yet, it is often a very long, very drawn-out process, and ultimately with no movement. So, this office, this was on Wednesday. I was talking to this assistant or hygienist or whatever she is. And she said that they would call on Friday, which is today. And mysterious, no phone call. So not only do I not have dental care, I don't even have the dignity of communication. My requests to talk to the dentist are not being honored. My accommodation requests are not being honored. I am not getting the care that I need in any way, shape, or form. I had even said to the office manager last week that it seems that my assist device lasts for an X amount of time, and that I can we can go ahead and schedule the easier stuff like the cleaning. I haven't even had a cleaning, so let's schedule the cleaning, and let's schedule, you know, the some of the cavity restorations, because I know that that my assist device will work for that much time. We can't have me in there for too long, but let's keep working on this, and let's get that scheduled, because that's kind of like the big wins, you know, get the ball rolling. And when you ask for something so simple and you are refused even a cleaning appointment, where all you've asked is that they listen to you, and you're the one doing all the accommodating, if they're not willing to give you that appointment, they were never going to accommodate you to begin with. This is one of the unfortunate tricks that you learn along the way, is how to read that language, and are they working toward including you or excluding you from care. And at this point, it is actually pretty clear that they are excluding me from care, because I did ask to speak to the dentist himself. Sorry, sometimes I jump around on my thoughts, but I had asked for, when I had the treatment plan laid out for me, that was with the assumption that I was actually going to get care, and I was going to get the accommodation that I needed. Well, that's not true at this point, and part of the problem with that is being denied any care changes your prognosis. So now my question is, in the setting of no dental care, what's my prognosis with these infections? What happens if they get worse? How am I going to get treated? And they're ghosting me. Like, they literally just decided that I'm not going to have care, and then just stop talking. And you do have to wonder, how the hell does that happen? So I've been sitting here all day long, waiting for a phone call that's never going to come, knowing that the likelihood that that phone call was going to come was very, 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 very low. Yet, I don't have the choice. I have to sit here and wait on that phone call if I ever want to hope to get dental care. And this is very common with certain disabilities. And for anybody who's kind of like, I don't understand the disability thing. Disability is one of those things that when you live it, your experience is much different than what most people would think that it is. So, like, disability, my disability, impacts a significant part of my life. Yet, I am fully functional and able-bodied, and you name it. I'm good. Able-bodied is even an ableist way of saying that, but sorry, every once in a while my ableism slips out, because that's what society tells us to say. I don't have multiple disabilities. I have one. But because I am refused care based on that disability, that refusal of care is impacting all other parts of my life. And one of the concepts that keeps coming up over and over and over and over again in the disability community is that a lot of people with disabilities are very happy with themselves. They don't have a problem with their disability. Like for me, I'll speak for me because I shouldn't ever be speaking for other people unless it's, an experience that mirrors mine. But for me, when I tell people that I have a disability, I get the pity party. Oh my God, do I get the pity party, and I flippin' hate it. I did not ask for anybody's pity. I don't ask for charity. I don't ask for pity. I ask for people to treat me as a human, which I think is a reasonable expectation. But there's no reason for people to pity me. I have a disability. And I also have a family, and I have hobbies, and I have, stuff I need to get done. I have so much stuff that I need to get done. And this constant pity party and having to explain your reality to everybody is exhausting. Because a lot of times it makes no damn difference at all. And if society around me was accessible to my disability, I wouldn't be talking about it. I'm forced to have these conversations because of an inaccessible world around me. And then I get blamed for having these conversations, which is just really super special asshole behavior, by the way. If people would like me to stop having conversations about my disability not being accommodated, then maybe they should work on making society accessible so I never have to bring it up again. That would make my life. I would love that. So I often will have my request for accommodations belittled. I've been told that I don't have a disability, when definitionally I absolutely do. I have been told by disability rights advocates and disability rights organizations that I will not cure the world of discrimination against my disability. I have been told that it is the doctor's choice if they want to accommodate my disability. That is absolutely wrong. It's not a choice. I have been told that I am unreasonable, which is one of those phrases in the ADA that is absolutely atrocious, because whether or not accommodating in a disability is supposed to be a conversation that happens, but because of the wording of the ADA, the entities who are discriminating unilaterally decide what they have decided to be or not be reasonable, and then they inform you thusly. So that's a problem, because the accommodations that I request are reasonable. I offer to pay for any accommodation that they find to be a financial burden when in fact the accommodations that I request save them money. So they can't even say that it's too much work from that standpoint. But this has left me and people just like me all across the country with certain invisible disabilities or non-apparent disabilities scrambling for our dental care and our medical care, and just flat out being excluded. And so some of the, and I'll make separate videos about all of this because these are big subjects. But I had one disability rights advocate who, when I was explaining how my disability is not being accommodated in healthcare settings, this disability rights activist or advocate likened my accommodation requests for healthcare to me going to the movies. And I take offense to that because healthcare is a critical access need. And movies are a frivolity that I can't even begin to comprehend doing. And the funny part is, I have a right to go to the movies too. But I don't, because you have to prioritize your fights. And my fight has been prioritized to getting health care, getting dental care, getting family practice care. I haven't had an exam, a proper exam, in 8 years. No screenings. No, it's a big long list of no. No GYN care in 10 years. No specialty care in 10 years. All because of this discrimination that's going on. And discrimination to the point where I cannot self-accommodate because my self-accommodation will not work long enough to get these appointments done. So it gets pretty dire pretty quick. And the gaslighting that's happening is atrocious. And so we do all the things right. We do everything right. And yet we're still sitting here without the most basic health care. And having some pretty bizarre conversations too. Because one of the questions, it has to be asked, what happens if I don't have my dental care? Well, that's kind of a ominous little question to ask, isn't it? But when you ask that of a dentist who just refused you care, somehow or another you've been rendered as not human. Like, they're not even registering in their brain that you should have this care. It's not registering. They don't care. So for all of these dentists who are breaking their arms, patting themselves on the back because they have, they're doing mission trips, and they're serving people less fortunate than themselves, and they're really proud of themselves for doing all this Christian stuff. And you know what? We all take the religion away. We should all be doing right by each other in every way that we can. sadly, that compassion stops with me. And nobody can tell me why. Nobody can tell me why I am disposable. Why my dental care is not important. Because all of that talk from the American Dental Association and your local, state dental associations about how important oral health is to your overall health, and you can't delay, and you need those cleanings every 6 months. Don't delay. They've got care credit. They've got like all of these things that they put in place to make sure that you get the care that they decided that you need. Those recommendations are everywhere, unless you have a disability, and all of a sudden the recommendations are different. Those recommendations that the normies, quote unquote, our non-disabled counterparts get are not the recommendations that we get. And when you have systems in place in society that favor one group over another, especially based on health status, you have a recipe for eugenics. And again, I'll go over these all in different videos. But people with disabilities are not broken. And the fact that we are being offered less service, and when I say offered, I'm saying we are doing the asking. We are not getting in the engagements. When I say offer, we're not sitting around waiting for people to come knock on our door and have them begging us to come get care. That's not what I'm saying. They have to extend that care to you, that offer of care, equally to what they would if you were not disabled. That is not happening at all. So, how we have a healthcare system that caters to people who are, I will say, quote unquote, again, more fit than the disabled people. I've actually had offices, when I ask for accommodation, tell me that, well, the rest of the patients like this, so, we're not going to change. Okay, favoring one group over another because they are less disabled than you is eugenics. Because people with disabilities who do not have equal access to health care, they do not benefit from health care, from screenings, from health maintenance, from emergent care, whatever it is. When you have people who are excluded from health care and the maintenance of their health, it is the logical end point that they will not have the same health outcomes. It's well documented. People with disabilities have poorer health outcomes. They die off faster due to medical neglect. And that is eugenics. So, when somebody asks for an accommodation that they need, people don't ask for accommodations because it makes us feel super special and we just didn't get enough attention today, so we're just going to be a pain in your ass. That's not how it works. If they're asking, it's because they need that accommodation. And when somebody has mustered up the mental fortitude to have to ask again for an accommodation that in the past has been denied them repeatedly to the point of being traumatic, if they muster up that courage, that strength, that desperation to ask for that accommodation, show them a little bit of dignity and just give them the accommodation. For the love of God, just give them the accommodation. They're not asking to feel special. They're just trying to survive. And I get a lot of people who give me the pity party that I have a disability. And isn't that so sad? I do not care that I have a disability. Me and my disability, we get along just fine. I do not care that I have this disability. I understand it. I know the limitations of it. I know how to work around it for all of the things that are within my control. And the only time I ever ask for an accommodation is for those few things that I can't do myself, because they have something to do with the building that I'm trying to enter, the service that I'm trying to get. If I could self-accommodate through everything, that's what I would do, and I would never have a conversation about this ever again. But that's not how it works. When people ask for accommodation, it's because they need it, not because they want it. We know how to decide what's a need and a want. And we are not getting our accommodations. And we're not getting back the scaled back, or we're not getting the scaled back accommodations that we're asking for. We can be asking for a hell of a lot more than we are. And even scaling it back, thinking, okay, well, if I just ask for this, just in the extreme situations, I'll ask for the accommodation. We're not getting those either. And what's happening is a lot of people with disabilities are being shoved off the cliff of society. And our lawmakers are not caring. Our healthcare does not care because we are not the easy money. Healthcare should be our biggest advocates, our most vocal advocates. They should be the gold standard of how to have these conversations with people with disabilities for full inclusion, without attitudinal barriers, without all the disability tax, the time, the energy, the money, the health that we are spending and losing and sacrificing to this system that forces us to beg for our existence. Healthcare should be our champions. They should be amplifying our voices as people with disabilities for full inclusion across all society. And what they're actually doing is perpetuating the discrimination on a daily basis to the point where we are not getting our healthcare needs met, or in my case, I'm getting none of my healthcare needs met. If I can't do it myself at home, if I cannot DIY my healthcare, I do not have healthcare, which is bizarre. It is very bizarre that I have to say that out loud, but it is the reality. And in hospital settings, we have doctors refusing patients care because of things like quadriplegia, because they decide that using QALYs, which are quality adjusted life years, they decide the worth of that person, the worth of that patient to survive, based on whether they can walk and talk. They will withhold care for something unrelated to the disability. So like if a patient, and this is a case that is coming out of Texas, the patient is admitted to the hospital for an infection like a urinary tract infection or pneumonia, that kind of thing, which is not uncommon in quadriplegic patients for a variety of reasons I won't go into right now, but these are not surprising infections in a patient who's quadriplegic. And you have easily treatable, readily treatable conditions like a urinary tract infection not being treated because that patient is quadriplegic. And that doctor decided that quadriplegics don't have a quality of life. And they make dumbass decisions like withholding treatment of infections. And they allow those patients to go septic and progress to severe sepsis and die of multi-system organ failure. All because they had the nerve to be quadriplegic. And doctors don't feel that they can condone prolonging the life of a person they feel doesn't have a quality of life. And that is a huge problem because there's a massive discrepancy in whose quality of life do you go off of. So if you ask a doctor what my quality of life is, you will get a very different answer than if you ask me what I think my quality of life is. Or, how much does my disability affect me? And should I be allowed to live with a disability? Which in medical circles is often seen as a defect. I'm defective somehow. If I want medical care, and I swear to you this has been said to me, and these will come up in different conversations along the way, it has been said to me that if I want health care, I should try and get holistic health care. That was said to me by my insurance company. They do not pay for holistic health care. I am trying to access westernized medicine. The stuff that they pay for or that they participate with. And by telling me to get holistic care instead, they're literally saying that if I was less sick, then I could have health care. I have a disability. It is an immutable fact about me. It just is. It's me. I can't do anything about that. Can't change it. Honestly, I don't mind having a disability. I understand that, everybody else probably thinks that this is like the worst thing that happened to me in life, but it's really not. I don't care that I have a disability. If society around me was actually accessible for my disability, I would have so much time on my hands. I would have I would be included. I'd be off teaching classes and, working in the community, and I would be doing so many things, but I can't do these things because society is not available to me. It's just not accessible to me because of the disability, and not even because of the disability. But because society has chosen not to be accessible, and when I ask them to be accessible, I'm mocked, quite frankly. And I'm told to go somewhere else, and I'm told not to. I'm told by the people who are supposed to be protecting my rights that I don't have rights, and I do have rights, by the way. I have the same rights as anybody else with any other disability, but the problem is we have rights, and yet we have no teeth to that, ironically, teeth to those rights. So lots more conversations will be coming up, and a lot of it is I'm coupling it with yarn arts, which may seem a little odd to you, except I will unfortunately lose my shit if I can't balance the oppressive nature of this fight for healthcare and for exercising my rights. If I can't balance it somehow, I will lose my shit. So I balance that with yarn arts and teaching. I really am good at teaching. And so I will talk about healthcare and the lack of access to it. At the same time, I'm going to sit here and teach different things about weaving and circular sock machine knitting and flatbed knitting, and how do you finish the work, and where do you get the ideas from, and all these different things. I mean, this is my chance to teach something that I think is really positive. I think what we are talking about as far as disability and discrimination and what it looks like, it's not limited to me. It's affecting all sorts of people. So we have to have these conversations. So it's affecting the disability community, but it's also affecting a lot of marginalized communities, and we have to be able to talk about this out loud frequently. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. I'll answer them, because a lot of what I am talking about often is stuff that is new to other people. They haven't heard it, or they haven't heard my take on it. And the more people that are educated about disability and what actual inclusion means in society, why is it important, how do we accomplish it, the more we talk about that, the better life gets for everybody. Because if thank goodness for YouTube, right? Most everything I've learned in the last 10 years, I've learned from YouTube. A lot of the things that I've taught and I've been able to share different projects and stuff has been because of YouTube. So thank goodness that it exists, as long as, you stay away from the toxic of it. But I could be doing in the community so many things, and I'd like to, but I can't, because society is not accessible to me. And I really should have been working at some point as a paraprofessional in the public school systems, and I was not able to do that because of the discrimination against my disability. Quite ironically, I can't work on site. I can't teach classes at the local yarn school or yarn store if I wanted to. There's so many things that I'm limited on. So I'm going to take the only platforms that I can, where I can contribute, which is through YouTube, through these discussions, through sharing, the projects that I make, and hope that everybody's a little bit enjoys the pretties. I make pretties for you. And enjoys the discussions. And if people, I do want to say this out loud, if people are working toward including people with disabilities in society, and this is all new to you, I will have a discussion with just about anybody if they're working toward inclusion. If you take the information and you are going to further exclude people with disabilities, I'm sure there's a way to ban people, and I'll do it pretty quickly. I can read people quite well, and just to have positive conversations where it's not about being perfect. You don't have to be perfect. I'm not perfect. When I'm talking about disability, there's a lot of disabilities I'm not well versed in, and I'm sure I step in it, and I don't mean to. But if the conversations are engaging in a way that the end goal is inclusion for everybody, and that's inclusion for people with disabilities, but all marginalized identities. If that's the end goal, I'll have the conversation. You can ask questions in the comments. Some point I may do a question and answer session so that people can pick my brain in real time. That would be fine, but always know that the end goal is full inclusion, and every one of us has a part in that. We all have a voice, and if you are in a position of power or a position of change, you have a legislative status, you're a senator, House of Representatives, or, you're an administrator at the schools, or, anything really. You work, even if you're the janitor or a medical assistant or a doctor or a IT person at a healthcare system, you have a voice to promote that inclusion of marginalized groups, and disability is a marginalized identity. You have a position of power that we may not. And if you learn what we're talking about, you can amplify what we're saying. And if everybody can take that little part and do that, we can get somewhere on this fight, and maybe I won't have to wait 5.5 years for dental care that's never coming. You're part of that process. I'm part of that process. So let's have the discussion so that we can make this a better place for everybody while we're still here. If what I'm saying makes any sense to you, you know the drill. Subscribe, like, share. Let's start having these conversations in every way possible. And I'll see you next time.